What a day to be a Spartan.
Could not happen to a worse program. Could not happen to a worse program.
It just burns to the ground.
It's the arrival. I came in the league, went straight for the title.
Touchdown! Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvelous. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown. The Don.
There's nothing quite like the game.
Michigan versus Ohio State.
This is The Rivalry, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
It feels a little bit like the real season is about to begin for Ohio State and Michigan. I'm Jace. That's JP.
What up?
This is the Rivalry Podcast focused on the Ohio State-Michigan football rivalry, your garbage-free college football podcast at RivalPod on social media. Starting off with a little bit of a wheel route question here to break the ice. Big thanks to the J Company. Fall in love with your home all over again at thejaecompany.com. Let's see what the good old wheel has for us today.
Ooh, all right.
Spicy stuff. The best one-loss team in the country.
There's realistically, in my opinion, there are three teams you could have chosen from.
Okay. Who are the three teams?
Normally I get yelled at when I don't follow the rules and just pick one, but I'll tell you what three I think should be in the conversation. Texas, Oregon, Alabama. Enough said.
Yeah, I would agree with two of those. I'd agree with Texas and Oregon. I don't buy Alabama.
I think they're starting to get on a roll. They almost helped me out this weekend and lost to Arkansas. I was really rooting for KJ Jefferson. He had a phenomenal highlight play, but they weren't strong enough to pull it out. But I still believe it's Alabama. I don't know why in my mind. I still just believe in them. I think in any game they're going to have a chance to win it. I think if I have to narrow it down to one team,
which you do, that's the question.
There it is. I'm going Oregon.
Correct.
Oregon.
Correct. Oregon. I mean, Bo Nix is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They are a missed field goal away from sending that game to overtime. So the game of the year thus far, by far, Washington, Oregon.
I don't know if it's the game of the year because I think the Ohio State Notre Dame 100%. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The best college football game.
I think that's an emotionally driven one.
I don't know.
From a watching standpoint, that game was 3-0 at halftime.
Yeah, it was more exciting on the offensive end, but I think just from a football perspective, having to go and kick a field goal versus you need to punch it in from 1 yard out with 3 seconds to go, I don't know. They're both, it's close. I'll give you that.
But I will agree with you, and this may be the only time we agree on this entire podcast. I agree Oregon is the best one-loss team in the country. Okay. Because if I think about it this way, if I'm Michigan, which of those teams would I least like to play? And the team I would least like to play would be Bo Nix and Oregon. Because I think Michigan could beat Texas. I think Michigan could beat Alabama. Could they beat Oregon? Sure, but that's a high-powered offense.
Mm-hmm. I would say the same thing about Washington. Washington's offense is insane.
Yeah.
They got the ball back and scored in 2 plays. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. is just a dude, a stud.
And that's going to, I think for right now, that's why Penix is the clear front runner for the Heisman.
Especially after the performance Caleb Williams had this weekend.
Caleb Williams. And again, even though Bo Nix had himself a good game, you do have to take wins and losses head to head into account for sure. And so he's the front runner. I think, I'm trying to remember who's in second. I think McCarthy has the third best odds right now, which will be interesting to see how that continues.
Not going to happen.
Listen,
we know it's not going to happen.
Stop it.
If you're talking quarterbacks, he is not, unless something happens to Michael Penix or somebody like that, he's not winning it.
We'll see. He's in the same tier though. He's in the Penix, Nix, McCarthy, Williams. He's in that tier. Listen, just because your quarterback's in like tier 7 doesn't mean anything.
He's better right now in the overall standings.
Okay, see, we agreed for a whole we agreed for a whole 30 seconds. Here's something else we can agree about because we're going to start with Michigan with a big matchup. But first, we can't talk Michigan State without talking about Rutgers to the Rose Bowl.
Let's go, baby.
Go off, King. Go off. I'm going to put this on.
Please,
Mike Teal Tracy's going back on, folks. Make sure you're watching on YouTube at RivalPod for moments like this.
I've got the helmet needs to go up front.
Say all the things that you want to say about your Rutgers right now.
I'm speechless because you're down 24-6 going into the fourth quarter, there's like 9 minutes to go, and somehow you pull that game out. Now you're heading into a week where you play Indiana, who is not good.
No, not
with
even
a
remotely
chance
good
to become bowl eligible. This Rutgers team has a chance this weekend, with numerous games remaining on the schedule still, to win 6 games and be bowl eligible.
Well, not just to win 6 games, but to be 6-1.
To be 6-1. Talk to your kids about 6-1 Rutgers, led by the Greg Schiano.
Oh my gosh.
I was so jacked. It was so sweet. One of my friends is a huge Michigan State fan. And at the start of the fourth quarter, I get a FaceTime call from him. And I'm going to be a good sport, so I answer it, knowing exactly what the call is going to be.
It's what, 24-6?
It's 24-6. I know exactly what it's going to be. We had been texting throughout the game, every single chance that we could. It was an ugly game. And he just calls me and just is smiling because he thinks he's got it in the bag. And when I tell you I have never hit a call, I have never actually FaceTime somebody because but I go to FaceTime him and I just held up an L and just grinned. Didn't say a word. This
is why you don't send these type of texts or tweets until the clock is at 0. Period.
I'm going to call him out. Chris Snead, you are the reason Michigan State lost, other than that they are butt. Because you jinxed your own team.
Those are the only 2 reasons. Only 2 reasons.
You jinxed your own team. You just don't do that. It's like playing baseball and calling a perfect game. Especially when your team is as bad as Michigan State. You never, ever send a pre-text about a win.
That's just a rookie move.
Rule number 1, honestly.
So what is the Schiano meter at for Rutgers to the Rose Bowl? Because they are 5-1.
Hey,
they can still,
and Indiana's not great.
Rutgers can still win the Big Ten. Rutgers can still go to the Rose Bowl in this playoff game.
I can only go so high.
Rank Rutgers, you cowards.
Receive votes at least.
Come on.
You can do it.
Somebody in the AP poll still gave Miami 1 vote.
Absolutely atrocious.
Steward the vote well. Okay? Steward the vote well. Vote for Rutgers. That's it.
Thank you for that. It's election season. I'd love to have some votes going on.
So what is the Rutgers Rose Bowl Schiano meter?
It's a 3.5 right now. It's strong. 3.5 Schianos. 1 more win. They're going to Indiana. Both teams are bad. I don't know why you're taking that off early. I'm still vibing.
I'm done vibing with Rutgers for right now.
Okay, well, that makes me a little sad. They're 1 win away.
I'm still in, but
there's just nothing sweeter than watching Michigan State lose, but watching them lose how they lost. Kyle Monangai, absolute monster. 22 or 24 carries for $148. Just a man. Gavin Wimsatt wasn't really where I wanted him to be yet. There were a couple of weird throws. Dude was throwing rockets in like the pouring rain, which isn't a smart idea. But they got the job done. I'm not sad about it.
This isn't a Rutgers podcast, but we do like to embrace.
Hey, shout out to all our fans. We have a lot of Rutgers fans.
We have the Scarlet Knights are on board. UTSA, Meep Nation. We're on board with the Roadrunners too,
boys.
Rutgers won, Michigan won, Ohio State won, UTSA won. It's just a good week on the
State
podcast.
Lost at the end of the day.
Good week on the podcast. The Lions and the Browns both won.
Can you imagine, just for a second,
okay.
Imagine you paid a coach 10 years and $95 million.
Okay. I'll try and picture that.
Okay, I'll give you a second.
Okay. Yeah. 10 years, 95
Let's just say his name was Spellbucker.
Yeah, love him.
Or it rhymed with it.
Yeah.
You go into this game, and you're not favored against Rutgers.
Yeah. A team that you built.
A team that you built from the ground up. Then you have a 24-6 lead against that Rutgers team, and you're feeling all right.
Yeah, I would.
Only to then blow that game. Could you imagine? That would be so embarrassing. As you watch your former wide receiver, Keon Coleman, do just absolute filthy one-handed grab. Man. It's just, what a day to be a Spartan.
Could not happen to a worse program. Could not happen to a worse program.
It just burns to the ground.
Luckily for Michigan State, the schedule gets so much worse.
I can't wait.
Michigan State, prime time, NBC on Saturday night. Michigan State cannot get out of their own way. And again, there's so many things you could analyze for Michigan State. But the biggest thing is that Michigan State can't get out of their own way. They've got special teams issues. They've got penalty issues. Michigan is the least, they might be tied for least penalized team in the country. Them and Air Force, because God bless America. Michigan does not make a lot of stupid mistakes. You know, McCarthy had the 3 picks against Bowling Green. That's really
he had 2 fumbles this past week, but
that's really the only thing that I can go, yeah, the mistake-prone football. Like, outside of that game, Michigan has played very clean football. They're not penalized. The recipe for a monumental upset, which I think Michigan, the line opened as like 25-point favorites,
Raise that up.
The recipe for monumental upset requires precision, and Michigan State just does not have that. They've got a brand new starting quarterback. It looks like Caton Hauser is going to be the starter moving forward, replaces Noah Kim. Because you know what? Why not have your second career start be against Michigan? Why not?
It's going to go well.
Caton Hauser reminds me a little bit of Harburg from Nebraska, kind of that dual threat guy. Not great at either, but you at least have to account for his legs. Yeah. If you remember when Michigan played Nebraska, Harburg ran 9 times for -2 yards. So not great there. Just Michigan State's in shambles. And this is where I have to caution Michigan fans, because I feel like this happens often, where you'll have kind of what happened on Saturday with Indiana, where it's a 7-7 game late in the second quarter. And I started getting text messages from Mitch, the former co-host on this podcast, saying, "How are you feeling right now?" I'm like, I told him confident, because have you watched any of this game? And Michigan would then score 52 straight points.
Yep.
You have everybody in maize and blue wants Michigan to come out swinging and be up 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Okay. I would love that. That's not how Michigan tends to do things. Occasionally, yes, you'll get that. But this is, again, the boa constrictor mentality, right? Just this year, the boa constrictor also has an assault rifle. And so like they could come out swinging, but Michigan tends to just sit on you until you cry uncle. And then they do it again and again and again. Don't be shocked if this game is 17-10 at the half. Don't be shocked if it's 14-7. Calm yourself down, because Michigan is outscoring its opponents 93-0 in the third quarter. 93-0. This is the Michigan way. Michigan is bigger, faster, more disciplined, second total defense in the country, first overall scoring defense, first in rushing touchdowns, first in receiving touchdowns, 56-13. There's no reason to belabor this point. Michigan State is garbage, and I have never wanted to beat a football team more.
There is literally no chance on this universe that Michigan State scores 13 points. Oh. This defense for Michigan is absolutely terrifying right now. I love it. They're holding opponents.
Right into the veins.
If it wasn't Michigan State, I wouldn't be talking like this, but I hate those guys.
We're going to chop this up and replace it when Ohio State week comes.
Absolutely not. I'll tell you my final score first, and I'll tell you why. Yeah. Michigan 56, Michigan State 6. I think they get a couple of field goals. They do not have any playmakers. No. There are 0 playmakers on that. Last year, it was interesting.
I will say Trey Mosley sometimes.
No, he's okay.
He's
all right.
To give credit.
He's all right.
I love
he's
this.
Okay.
I love this.
No, after the disrespect from them against my Rutgers guys, absolutely not. We will have none of that here. Keon Coleman is gone. They had a decent quarterback last year. Peyton Thorne. He's gone now. They don't have it. They don't have a quarterback that remotely scares me. They don't have a running back that remotely scares me. They have 0 receivers at wideout that remotely scare me. They are not scoring a touchdown against this Michigan defense unless it is like late in the fourth quarter and then they get one.
And that's
they are not having 2 offensive drives that result in points. No. There is no chance. I'll give them 2 field goals, so I guess they will have 2 drives that result in points, but no touchdown. Yeah. There's just no way they find it in the end zone. I think the way Michigan's offense has been rolling, nobody has to play hero ball at all. Like last year, and I wouldn't even say last year you guys had to do this, but Corum would have games where he'd have 200 yards or high 100-something yardage games. McCarthy, another efficient game where he goes out there, throws 14 of 18 for 200-something and 3 touchdowns. Nobody's going to go out there and statistically be flashy because they're not going to need to. Yeah. This game will be 28 or 35-3 at half.
You'll have guys in the late third and into the fourth quarter.
Your backups will be playing.
You'll see Jack Tuttle back in there. Jaden Donegal will get in there. Alex Orji will get in there. And it's just a quarterback rotation at that point.
100%. I would honestly say the entire second half needs to be a Donovan Edwards show. We've talked about it for weeks. He finally got into the end zone against Indiana. This week, I need to see him 20-plus carries against this Michigan State team.
I don't think you'll see 20 plus, but I do think you'll see late third into the fourth quarter if it goes the way that we expect it to. Yeah, you'll see a healthy dose of Dono. You're going to see Ben Hall had a really, I like this freshman. I like Benjamin Hall, and I know that Cole Cabana's on the team, and Michigan's running back room just continues to get better and better and better. I expect to see the full contingent of everybody that's healthy getting in there.
It is going to be ugly from the very beginning.
I'll say this too, with what happened at the end of the game last year, Michigan is a hungry team. it's beyond just it's a rivalry game. Obviously, there was some real nasty stuff that came from the Michigan State side at the end of last year's game. Don't think that Michigan's forgotten about that. They obviously haven't, but don't think that that's not motivation on the field to put as many points on them as they can. If Michigan's up 52
it's a rivalry game. You throw out
if they're up
sportsmanship.
52-3, I hope that Michigan is continuing to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You this is a chance to really put your foot down. Now, this is going to look real silly when it's like 17-16 in the fourth quarter and I'm biting my nails.
There's no possible way.
I'm also really glad. I'll say this and then we'll move on to Ohio State. I've shared this before, but the thing that gets stuck in my head every single year when Michigan State plays is I feel like every year there's something that keeps me from watching the game. Last year we were driving back from Penn State.
Yep.
And
we made a lot of effort to watch.
We had like a little hotspot for Wi-Fi. Tried to pull up the laptop.
Open.
It wasn't working. I missed the entire game. 1 year for my anniversary, we were in northern Canada, and I was trying to like stream it off some Russian website, which probably destroyed my computer. Wasn't really working. And then my favorite is the year that I got married, my wedding shower, my wife and I's wedding shower was the afternoon of the Michigan State game. So I watched half the game.
Lindsay, what are you doing?
Watched half the game with my brother-in-law, Miles. And then as I'm opening up like the second crock pot of the day, I'm going, oh, thanks, the crock pot. I'm making eye contact with my brother-in-law who's in the back row. And he like fist pumps. And I mouth to him, is it over? And he kind of looks at his phone, puts up one finger, and looks back down. I'm like, well, what does that mean?
No,
man?
absolutely not.
What does that mean, Miles? It was fine. They ended up winning that game, but I'm like, dude, you gotta give me more than that.
You can't make a reaction like that in then 1 minute.
So there will be no plans on Saturday. You should cancel all your plans as well because it's a great slate of college
because you're going to be
football.
busy celebrating when Rutgers picks up that 6th win against Indiana. So I get it.
Big thanks, by the way, as we move into Ohio State, to our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction. Building a championship caliber housing project, success starts with integrity. Business build, church build, home build. They help with design as well. Go with integrity. There's no guesswork here. Aaron Carroll and his team have you in good hands at elevatedintegrity.com. Thankful for them for making this podcast happen, but also
if things do get a little sweaty though with Michigan State, the best place to go and view this is actually on all of our socials because you can see Jay's freak out tweet throughout the entire game. You'll see a lot of Rutgers celebrations. It's going to be a great time regardless. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Rival Pod. We also have a Patreon, which I brought this in to showcase. We got some new stickers that you can get if you become a Patreon subscriber. I'm repping a t-shirt. I'm fully branded out today.
I love it.
T-shirts for some top tier Patreon. Plus you get exclusive stuff like some weekly blogs. We're giving keys to the games, kind of our thoughts for all that. You can check that out at patreon.com/rivalpod as well.
It's those stickers, by the way, are like $1 a month, supports the podcast. And we're going to send you a sticker to say thank you. Okay. You won't even remember that you're spending $1 a month. You'll just be like, man, I've got all these exclusive blogs. I've got a sticker. This is amazing. riverradio.com/rivalry. We'll send you a link to Patreon and all of our socials as well. All right. There's a big one in Columbus this weekend as well.
I'm not ready.
All right. Ohio State and Penn State. And I'm going to give you the floor to give me your opening thoughts on what this game's going to look like. And we've talked about this a little bit, but I want you to go on record and share some of your thoughts on a massive Big Ten East matchup.
Another top 10 matchup. I don't know. I don't know.
Thanks so much for subscribing. If that doesn't encourage you to check out our exclusive Patreon content,
great insight.
I don't know. There you go.
Penn State to me is just tricky, and Ohio State is as well, because I genuinely think Ohio State is a great football team. But I try to look at some of their big games. I look at them against Notre Dame, and Sam Hartman gets outplayed by Kyle McCord. I look at Taulia, and I think McCord outplays him. Both of those were key games on the schedule that Ohio State handled business. But then you go and you see Maryland lose to Illinois afterwards. Yeah. Then you see Notre Dame barely beat Duke. Then they go and they lose to Louisville. Then they go out and destroy Caleb Williams and USC. Yeah. And I go, I don't know how quality of wins those are. I just can't get a read on those teams. So then it makes me think, okay, going up against Penn State, they have also played nobody to really give me a good test to be able to look at them and go, well, they played this quality opponent tough. They have a lot of blowouts on their record, but they're playing UMass and Delaware and all that, where they're winning 60-0.
Wow, James Franklin is taking shots at Indiana for scheduling week schedules.
Sir, that is a conference game. You have to play it. It is just annoying. Drew Aller, I thought going into the season, and I'm going to be careful with my words because I am a firm believer in jinxing yourself. But I went into the season. The thing.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I went into the season and I thought this is a guy that was a top recruit coming out of high school from Medina, I believe. He was coming out from Medina, an Ohio kid. And I thought this dude has potential to be a phenomenal elite level quarterback talent. And he's been great. Don't get me wrong. Dude has been great. But I would say right now, I don't know if he has played better than McCord has. And McCord has played tougher competition. I think it's easy to stat pad when you're playing Delaware's and UMass.
I don't disagree with you.
And so I'm not trying to make that sound like I think Kyle McCord is ultimately a better quarterback. I think they're actually very even. What I'm trying to say is Aller, to me right now, hasn't had a prove it game. This is a game for him to solidify if he's going to be an elite talent.
And that's really
their running back game.
That's good analysis.
Their running back game's legitimately scary. They've got a good running back game. They've got a good O-line. They have a phenomenal defense like always. I'm more confident because this is a home game. I think that it's going to be one of those games, and it sounds generic to say first mistake loses. I think if one of them throws an interception, one of them fumbles, I think that's going to be the case of it right there.
I really dislike the very balanced approach that you have.
You agreeing with me?
Because you basically just read my notes. I'm with you where I believe that in the long run, Drew Aller is a very talented quarterback. Yeah. But right now, he's a tier 2.
Yeah, he'll be there. He will get there.
I would say, and I kind of said this earlier too, right now in college football, you have tier 1, which would be the Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., the J.J. McCarthy, the Caleb Williams. You've got these tier 1 quarterbacks. You have tier 2 quarterbacks, and I would put Jalen Milroe. I put Drew Aller. I will put Kyle McCord in there.
I'm fine with that.
But there's a big difference between tier 2 and tier 1. And so I don't think Drew Aller is at the tier 1 place where we thought he'd be right now. He will be next year.
Yeah.
And again, he may come out and prove that he belongs in that category
if he does,
today.
I would move him up to that. If he comes out and plays well, not just if they get the win, but he plays terrible, it won't matter.
Yeah.
When you hear Mark Price for 3, it probably takes you back to Old Richfield Coliseum, Gund Arena, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hey, this is Aaron from the Mark Price for 3 podcast, and each week Mark and I discuss 3 topics: basketball, coaching, and of course, his faith. Subscribe to the Mark Price for 3 podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
But the numbers between him and McCord are really, really similar. The stats are not that far off. Where I think the difference is for me is you referenced the run game. That's been, and I think that's going to be a huge. I think the offensive line of Ohio State and the defensive line of I should say the trenches on both sides.
Yeah.
The lines on both sides, which is basic football for the most part, right? Like that's kind of a duh statement. Again, Patreon analysis you can't get anywhere else.
Our blogs are great, I promise.
But Penn State's run game, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, I think that they could have a lot of success. Penn State's got a very good offensive line. Yep. Ohio State's offensive line and their ability to run the football, I think, is going to struggle. Ohio State's offensive line, the run game looked a lot better against Purdue, but this ain't Purdue. This is one of, right with Michigan, kind of neck and neck, the best defenses.
Well, and the running back room is hurt right now. You have Travion, who didn't play again. They were set. We were told at the end of the Maryland game that Henderson could have played, but they decided to hold him off. I do think the weather at Purdue held him out for a second week. I do think he realistically could have played. But that's a big question mark, though.
I would even say, though, even when he's been playing, even when the running back room has been healthy.
But he gives you explosiveness that I think could be beneficial. He might not get you.
But even look at the Notre Dame game, okay? Apart from one big chunk play, there was nothing in that run game with a healthy running back room. And so that's where if I'm an Ohio State fan and if I'm trying to analyze this from a very unbiased perspective.
Yes.
I don't think Ohio State can run the ball against Penn State. And if you get into that situation, that's where Kyle McCord may struggle, because if you know he's got to pass the ball, he can't, even against Purdue, some of those passes behind receivers, overthrown, Penn State will eat that alive.
When I would say another huge question mark right now is just the injury bug in general. I mean, you had Emeka Ibuka who didn't play at all. Granted, we had Carnell Tate and Brandon Enos come in and they played well, but they're young guys. They're not, you can't replace Emeka Ibuka in that lineup. So hopefully he's able to come back.
And we're recording this on a Monday, so there may be more information
at this
point.
Pop out. Hopefully we get Henderson back. Getting Ibuka back would be huge. I think it's just a weird game, because I think if those guys are healthy, Ohio State has a great chance to win this. I'm nervous because if they don't play, those are two dynamic players for this Ohio State offense that McCord needs to be able to rely on. I do think that Dallin Hayden provided some spark there at running back. And I'm going to sound biased, but I just don't even give a crap right now. The usage of Cade Stover needs to go up, especially in this game. If Ibuka goes out, Cade Stover's got to see the ball more. Yep. Dude has proven himself this year. I think he's already surpassed his yardage from last year, or he's at least pretty darn close. He's got to be utilized. He's a great blocker. He's been a reliable set of hands on this offense this year. I need a Cade Stover game, and I called it actually last year at the Penn State game.
Do we see one this week?
If Ibuka is out, it's a Cade Stover game.
Okay. I'm going to push you and say, give me your prediction then.
I've got Ohio State 27, Penn State 17. I think the offenses get a little bit done. I think there's a defensive touchdown in this. I think that's what separates it. I think we get a pick six, maybe not even a touchdown, but the defense sets up the offense for short yardage and they convert. I could see something like that. That's what I think makes the difference.
I think I'm with you. And I said, I'll toot my own horn here. Like in the Maryland game, when that game was, it was 10-0 Maryland. I looked at the guy next to us in the press box and said, we were talking about how it had gone so far. And I said, Ohio State's going to have to get some sort of turnover, fumble, pick six, something to get this going. And about 3 plays later is the pick six from Josh Proctor. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. It's going to be the first mistake, maybe the second, but let's say the first mistake may lose you that football game. These teams are really close.
I still think
these teams are really close.
If Ohio State wins by that score, I still am not doubting Penn State. I still think Penn State is Ohio State and Michigan to me are up here in tier 1 for the Big Ten. Penn State is like touching the line of being an elite Big Ten program.
And this is their chance to get there. This is their chance for Franklin to get over the hump.
The best Penn State team I think that I've seen in a long time.
I'll say this. The teams are so close. I have more, and I just cut to the chase. I have more faith in Penn State's defense than I do in Ohio State's offense right now.
Okay. You're wrong.
I think Ohio State is going to struggle to run the ball. And I'll say this too, as a Michigan guy, like I get that there are injuries, and I said this to you off mic. Yeah. I get that there are injuries. Michigan went into Columbus last year and beat Ohio State by 20 without who would have been the Heisman winner. Okay. Without the best running back in the country by far. So injuries, they hurt, but great teams find a way to get a win. Mm-hmm. So if Ohio State gets beat in this game because the running backs are just in shambles, I don't want to hear about it. Find a way to win. I trust more in Penn State's defense than Ohio State's offense. You ready for a nail biter? Ready for
Absolutely
a heart attack?
Not. No.
28-27 Penn State.
I will cry literal
I know you
tears.
will. And then I'm going to have to sit in traffic with you.
No, I will walk home all the way back to Mansfield.
All that to say, another push for social media at RivalPod on Instagram
I will
and Twitter.
Instagram live my entire walk back to Mansfield, Ohio.
Oh, man. Let's wrap this up with Stupid Genius Upset Pick of the Week. This is also brought to you by The J Company. Fall in love with your home all over again.
Do I have to do this?
At thejcompany.com. That's thejaecompany.com. I continue to do very well in this. I think this is
I keep getting so stinking close.
This is, I think, the 4th upset pick I've got right.
You're picking safe ones.
Really? Because Iowa over Wisconsin was a 9-point underdog.
Yeah, you're picking safe ones.
So 5 points was at 33.5, 5 points for the win, 9 points for the spread. I I don't know if my math is even right on this. It doesn't matter right now.
I have 0, so you're up by a whole heck of a lot.
I think I've got something around 43 and a half. I don't even think that's right.
Cool.
It doesn't matter. 40 something and a half to nothing.
Cool. Time's running out for your boy, but
you're going to have to start picking something right.
Look, Arkansas almost had it, and I was very pumped.
You get 0 points for almost had it. Who is your upset pick of the week? I'll let you even go first this week.
Duke over Florida State. I won't even prolong it.
That's a 14-point dog right now.
I genuinely think this Duke team deserved to beat Notre Dame.
Agree with that.
And then they would be undefeated. And so
but they're not.
And like you said, almost doesn't count.
And
I'm not a huge believer in Florida State. I think they're going to take it a little bit easy against Duke, and Duke's going to show them. I think their defense is legit. And I think they're 14-point dogs, but I'm trying to get back in this thing.
I wouldn't mind that at all. You're incorrect because Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman will do business.
Oh, for sure.
But I will absolutely cheer for the Blue Devils on that. Give me...
You're supposed to come prepared with this.
I am prepared for this. I'm trying to remember the spread. 9.5. I think it's 9. It's either 9 or 9.5. Tennessee over Alabama.
Okay. That's for sure not happening, but
it's at
Alabama, right?
I know where it's at. It's in Tuscaloosa, but I just don't know that I believe that this whole talk of like, well, Alabama's still in it. Yeah, but are they though? The answer's no. Tennessee's going to do it. Again,
I would love that.
This is not because this is like when I picked Florida over Tennessee. It's not because I really believe in Florida.
Yeah.
It's just I don't believe in Tennessee. In this case, it's fair. Not that I really believe in Tennessee. It's that I don't believe in Alabama.
We also don't want Alabama to be happy. So if they could lose.
One of the few, we're finding more and more things we can agree with on this podcast.
I will gladly sacrifice losing stupid genius if Alabama loses.
The last thing that I want to mention here is question for you that I did not have you prepared for.
Cool.
USC gets trounced by Notre Dame. Is USC finished? Does USC have a path?
Absolutely. There's no way that when you're a committee member, you're looking at that game. Beforehand, I thought Notre Dame's not going to have the offense to keep up with them. USC did nothing. Caleb Williams did nothing. I was not impressed on either side of the ball for either.
Let me play devil's advocate here. If USC beats Washington and Oregon, does that get them in? It doesn't matter because it won't happen. Trick question. You're done. Fight on, losers. You're done.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you for subscribing. Be sure to tell a friend at RivalPod across social media, Patreon at riverradio.com/rivalry. We will be at the Horseshoe on Saturday. Big noon kickoff, college game day. All of the marbles on the table.
I could throw up. I could throw up. In honor of Rutgers going to a bowl game, because I'm going to call it. Can we chop a little bit to close this?
Okay, I'm done doing this.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at RivalPod. Visit our Patreon and consider becoming a patron for exclusive bonus content, merch, and more. And be sure to follow us wherever you're listening now for new episodes every Tuesday. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.